Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 187 of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, and I'm so glad that you are back with me, and I hope that you are enjoying the podcast and that this show has meaning and purpose for you, and if it does, I encourage you to share this with others who you think it may have value for, and you can always contact me at nora@noraspeaks.com. That's nora@noraspeaks.com. I do welcome your feedback on the show, on the content. I welcome your questions. I check the emails often, and I'm grateful to those of you who have submitted your emails, whether it's of support or of critique. I welcome all of that, and I also encourage you to become a subscriber of the Nora Speaks podcast, and you can listen and subscribe on the app that you're using now. And Nora Speaks is on Apple Podcast, Castbox, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, and anywhere great podcasts are streamed. And I do encourage you to become a subscriber. And remember, you can follow Nora Speaks on social media at Nora Speaks Podcast. That's at Nora Speaks Podcast. So let's get into this week's episode. I'm talking in this episode about what we must do to help prepare our young people for life beyond school and beyond our homes. Specifically, I'm talking about what we must do to make our young people employable. There seems to be this trend that I have been hearing about where businesses that were once sure things or sure hires for our young people and our young adults, our teenagers, high school students, they're not sure things anymore. And quite frankly, hiring managers and supervisors, they do not want to deal with the hassle that comes with youth who are dysfunctional, who do not have the ability to follow instructions, who do not arrive to work on time or arrive prepared for their shift. And our young people are being cast to the side. And I've heard of, companies, fast food businesses, some restaurants, those businesses that were, great opportunities for our young people to get their foot in the door in employment. These companies are not looking for our young people. In fact, some of them have decided that they're just not worth the trouble. And can we blame these companies? I don't know that we can, when our young people come to them unprepared for what they're at the job to do. And so what I recognize is that our young people must have functional living skills that they need to be able to function outside of the home, outside of the school, and in an employment setting. I have been working with the disabled population for most of my adult life, and one of the things that is a goal for them is to help them develop functional living skills, whether that's, helping them learn how to brush their teeth or to walk to the mailbox and retrieve the mail, to make their beds. Different people have different abilities and capacities. And so what we do with folks who are disabled or who have intellectual disabilities is we try to help them maximize their potential, see what skills that they can perform and in what areas can we help them become better and enhanced. And that generally is called functional living skills, those skills that they need to function in the day-to-day life. We must pay attention to the same thing with the young people that we are raising and with the young people that are in our classrooms, that are coming and joining the teams that we coach, that are in the mentoring programs. Our young people, to an unfortunate extent, lack functional living skills. So I'm going to go run through about 7 areas that our young people must become strengthened in, areas in which our young people must have the basic skill set for them to become successful. The first we're going to start with is respecting time. Now, whether we're talking about being present on time for a scheduled job interview, or if that means once you're employed, being on time, getting to work. Now, what does that mean? And what do you need? And what do they need to get to work on time? Well, that's going to involve some preparation and some planning. One, is there a uniform? And is the uniform clean? Is the uniform pressed? If they don't have their own transportation, do they know how to use public transportation to get to work on time? Our young people have to learn how to manage their time. So they have to arrive on time to work. They have to return on time from their breaks, and they have to return to work after payday. And I know that may sound silly, but it's not. We have to let our young people know, I know you got paid on Friday. Do not call out on Monday. That's a habit that I've seen with some adults who have some struggles in life. They get their check and then they're off and spending it on whatever they're spending it on. And then they don't show up on Monday. And I know some companies that if you don't show up on the Monday after payday, don't show up at all. So we have to help our young people understand the value of time. Encourage them to arrive early for work so that they don't have to rush to work. Whether they're, again, using public transportation, we know that sometimes that's not always reliable. So get out early so that you can arrive early. There can be the case where your Uber cancels on you, or the bus that is late, or the train is late. Encourage them to get into the habit of arriving early. And then when they arrive, they should arrive and be prepared to start their shift, meaning they should be dressed or have time to get dressed. If they can't be dressed, maybe they're leaving from school or whatever, their circumstance are, they should be, if their shift starts at 9 o'clock, they should be dressed and ready to start their shift at 9 o'clock, not getting ready at 9 o'clock to start their 9 o'clock shift. So our young people have to understand time, respect time, and manage their time. The second skill, our young people must possess good communication skills. And they must understand that there's a difference between the colloquial jargon that they use with each other, the informal language, and the formal language skills. So, for example, encourage them to say yes instead of yeah or mm-hmm. Encourage them to say no instead of nah or mm-mm. Our young people must know how to effectively communicate. Communication is such an important tool, and it's something that I really wanted to make sure my sons had. I mean, these are young black men, and I need to know that when they go out in the world, not only do they have receptive language skills, meaning they can comprehend and whatever is coming to them, but that whatever it is that they're sending out, whatever it is that they're communicating, they're able to do it with precision and have the listener, the recipient of their message, able to understand and decipher. Again, we have in our community, we have the jargon that we use, or the body language that we use, or, the shorthand that we use. When we're at work, we have to encourage them to use formal language skills. That's very, very important, especially when they may be looking for opportunities for advancement. If they do not have the ability to communicate, then their ability to advance becomes severely limited. And I know that there tends to be, unfortunately, stereotypes or thoughts about a black person that speaks in a formal way. Listen, if our young people are to be successful, then they have to operate in the world. And there is nothing that is anti-black about speaking the King's English and speaking it properly. So, and look, we all know about code switching, and there's nothing wrong with code switching. You know, there's a language that we use based on the place, based on the time, and based on the audience. And when our young people are at work, they must have the capacity to communicate in that setting. Communication is very, very important. The third skill is basic academics, meaning literacy and math. Our young people must possess the ability to have, to be able to read and to count. Now, I know that the way the industry is, or industries are moving towards, technology, and, these computers are taking the place of cashiers, but sometimes they're going to have to count 45 cents to give change to the customer. Sometimes you're going to have to count 69 cents to give change to the customer. Our young people must have the ability to read and to count. And I should also add to write as well. And, I've seen that many high school graduates have graduated and they're functionally illiterate. And being illiterate is not that different from being blind. You go somewhere, the signs give you all the information that you need to get from point A to point B. And if you cannot read the signs, it's as if you're blind. And so our young people must possess some basic academic skills for them to be able to function successfully. I mean, think about the anxiety that a person has when they can't read, when they can't count, when they don't understand, when they're asked to write something and they can't write. Think about the anxiety, the embarrassment, the humiliation that they're experiencing. And so, we have to stop graduating our young people functionally illiterate. I mean, I've seen job applications that are filled out by our young people, and it is shameful. Shameful, shameful, shameful. We have to go back to mothers teaching our children how to write their address recite it and write it very early on. And I remember learning that as a very young child. We had to learn how to say it. We had to memorize it, phone numbers, and we had to know how to write it. And we had to write well as well. And that's a simple thing, and it may sound simple. However, when you come across some of the job application that our high school students are completing, it's frightening. It's frightening. I recall one job application when the question was sex, meaning what is your gender? And the person put frequency because they didn't understand that sex means gender. Are you a male or are you a female? It's not asking you if you're sexually active or how often you have sex. So helping our young people with these basic tools. And I know that everybody's not going to be a strong reader. Everyone's not going to be a strong writer, and everyone may not be strong in math. We have to have the basics, not just to work and to function in the workplace, but again, for a person to possess functional living skills. If you can't count, you're going to be robbed. You're going to be robbed. And, as we move into young adulthood, our young people are going to be faced with all kinds of circumstances where they're going to have to understand the applications that they're going to fill out, the mail that they're getting, their, car insurance policies, health insurance policies, all of the things that come with adulting. If our young people do not possess basic academic skills, well, they're in trouble and our future is in trouble. Another skill set that our young people must need. So we talked about respecting time. We talked about communication. We talked about basic literacy skills. Let's talk about discipline and capacity. The ability to control, the skill that it takes to control our emotions and our behaviors. Now, if you listen to this podcast, you've probably heard me talk about how our people are, we're an emotional people. We're very, very emotional. And our behavior is often driven by or led by our emotions. For us to be successful, for our young people to be successful in their workplace, they can't be easily triggered. They have to have some kind of self-possession and discipline and self-control. There is going to be difficult customers. There may be difficult colleagues. There may be difficult supervisors, right? That does not mean that because you disagree or you don't like how that person is speaking to you, then it's time to put up your hands and fight. Our young people have to have better self-control than they're exhibiting. And because they don't, employers are not looking for them. They put those applications to the side because our young people do not possess discipline and self-control. And so we have to help them early build up the capacity to manage less than ideal circumstances. I think about classrooms where the teachers reprimand the student and for whatever infraction, or maybe the teacher misunderstands or misreads something, and the student tells their parent, and their parent wants to come up and fight the teacher. Instead of helping their child just deal with less than ideal circumstances, we have to learn how to manage adversity, adverse circumstances. We have to learn how to be flexible and that we're going to be flexible. I can't tell you how many times I've been in Family Dollar or Dollar General, and the cashier is talking about how awful her workplace is, or talking about how awful his workplace is, or how much she or he hates their supervisor. And I'm the customer. I don't need to hear that. And the manager isn't going to want to hear that. And you are not a decent employee if you don't have self-control and discipline. So our young people must have the capacity, they must have the discipline and self-control that they're going to need to be successful at the workplace. Because with anything, we can encounter less than ideal circumstances. This includes, don't create a TikTok video while you're on the job. That's not the time for that. If you want to do that on your break, fine. But when you're getting paid, give an honest effort for the pay that you're getting. It is not time for you to create a social media video. You don't need to create a social media video to talk about your supervisor, your employees, the customers. Put the phone down and work. So we have to help our young people develop discipline and capacity. And for that to happen, then we have to put them in circumstances as they're growing to help them develop discipline and capacity. And that may mean sports and academic programs and other extracurriculars where our young people have to deal with people who may not be like them, who may not come from the same background that they come from. And that's one of the things that group projects in school is so good at helping us with, is dealing with people and differences. And if our young people do not possess discipline and capacity, they're going to continue to be tossed to the side. And I hate to go places and to see our young people just being so undisciplined and being so uncivilized. It's awful. And there have been times where I've wanted to, pull a young sister aside and say, look, this is not the time and place. but I know how hostile, I know how emotional our young people are. So instead of giving it to her, I give it to another young person that volunteered to come into my mentor program, because I know she's there to listen. And the young woman that's at the job, she's already undisciplined and out of control. And I'm just a customer. I don't need that kind of drama. But there have been times when I've been around that, and I just want to pull the sister aside and just drop a word on her. And so I hope that as you're listening to this and you've experienced this, then you have a young person that you're preparing to go out into the world, that you will have a conversation with him or with her so that they can be successful and put forth a wonderful representation of who they are and who the family is, right? I remember there was a time when family said, don't go out there embarrassing me, and so there needs to be, and we're going into the next one after discipline and capacity, there needs to be pride in the performance. There needs to be pride in their personhood. Now look, employers are checking social media. They are looking not just at what's on the application and looking at the young person when they're being interviewed, but they're going beyond them, and they want to see, what is this person putting on social media? And if we don't take pride in our public persona, and we have images or videos of ourselves that show that we don't care about ourselves, we don't care about the employer we are leaving, then the employer that may be the receiving employer says, well, you don't care about yourself. I know you're not going to care about me. And again, that's going to be another application put in the wastebasket. So we have to help our young people develop pride in themselves, whether it's because we want to help them get hired or not, just in general pride. And then when they are on the job, help them develop the desire to have pride in the performance in their workplace so that they can feel proud of themselves. And look, I remember being a new employee and coming in and most of the employers or employees who were present were older women who had been there for a while. And when you are starting a job, you go through the manual that has the policies and the protocols and the procedures, and you're the new employee and you want to do things just so. You want to do things according to policy, according to procedure. But when you get on the floor, when you get out there, you have those old veteran employees who tell you to put what you learned in that orientation brochure to the side, and we're going to do it like that. And you'll find that they may not take such pride in the work that they're doing. Well, that doesn't mean that you don't have to take pride in the work that you're doing. You can be your own person and stand out. And when we have pride in our performance, we're always going to stand out. Moving on. Our young people must know how to care for themselves, self-care, hygiene, grooming, their attire, their clothing. In some cases, they may be fortunate enough to have uniforms. Now, in the case that the employer does not provide a uniform, then the young person should know what is appropriate work attire and what is not appropriate work attire. I recall once I was taking my son to a job interview, and while I was waiting outside for him to come out from his interview, I saw young people coming out from the building who had interviewed or who were going in to interview, and they were in undershirts, like the tank top undershirts that the boys wear. Their jeans were sagging below their backsides with their underwear showing. They were going and coming in flip-flops. The girls were wearing strappy dresses or T-shirt dresses, thin dresses with no bras. And they're going, this is just for the job interview. Look, our young people must know what's appropriate for the workplace and what's not. Bonnets, that's not appropriate for the workplace. Coming to work with your hair unstyled, ungroomed, that is not appropriate. They must understand, our boys and our girls, our young men and our young women, what's appropriate grooming. Women, braids down to the floor or braids below the knee, that's not appropriate for the workplace. And in a lot of cases, it can definitely be a safety hazard. Our young people have to understand hygiene. You have to bathe every single day, and especially while our young folk are going through adolescence, and their body is secreting oils, hormones are all over the place. We have to encourage them to bathe at least once daily. They have to apply deodorant. Their clothes should be clean. Their uniforms should be clean. Their aprons should be clean. If a young person is working at a restaurant and they got their apron dirty the shift before, well, they should wash it, even if they have to hand wash it. It is so unsightly to walk to a counter to be served food and you look at the uniform and the uniform is grimy and dingy. That is just plain old unsanitary. So our young people have to understand hygiene, grooming, and appropriate work attire. And they're not going to know it if we don't teach it to them. And we cannot take for granted that they already know. Lastly, so we went through respecting time, communication, academic skills, basic academic skills, having discipline, self-control, and capacity, having pride in their performance, self-care, and finally, our young people must possess the ability to follow instructions. Follow instructions. The manager did not hire you so that you can tell the manager how the job should be done. When you are hired, you are trained and follow the training. It's unfortunate that the ability to follow instructions is something that many of our young people lack and don't possess. And, it's unreal to hear a young person say, I don't like him telling me what to do. I don't like her telling me what to do. Well, do you understand the nature of a supervisor? Do you understand the nature of being an employee of a job? Our young, and often they haven't had the experience of being told what to do. Sometimes there's not the parent in the home that's giving instructions. There may not be a father in the home that's giving instructions. And I've been told that some of our young men have a really hard time taking instructions from men, male supervisors, male managers, because they have not grown up with a man in the home. They're used to getting instructions from women because the woman is the teacher, or there's the mother, there's the grandmother, there's the aunt. But because they don't have a man in the home and a crucial man in their life, they're not used to taking instructions from men. And so they get emotional. Their ego is triggered. Listen, our young people must learn how to hear an instruction and carry out an instruction. And this is not just for our young people. This is for some of us older folks as well. But since we're talking about our young people and we want them to be successful, they have to know that they are going to receive instructions and that they are to follow those instructions. And I know that some of what I shared today in this episode seems so basic. However, you go and you watch some of our young people in their places of work and you'll see and you'll bear me witness that they're struggling, that they are struggling because they don't have some of these basic skills that I've shared with you here in this episode. We have to help our young people be successful. We have to help prepare them for a world and for experiences that will be new to them. And if we don't prepare them, they are going to be left behind. I know a young woman who works at a fast food restaurant, and she told me that they're not hiring any more young black people. They're decided that they're going to hire Hispanic young people because they're there to do the job. They don't get involved in the drama. They're not gossiping. They're not talking back to the manager. They're showing up on time. So what does that say about us? What does it say about the training that we're giving our young people? And I know some people want to cry discrimination. Look, a manager, a supervisor, they just want the employee to come to work prepared to work, on time to work, and have the ability to get the job done. And we come with so much drama that they've decided we are just not worth it. And so it's up to us to make sure that our young people are fortified. And so much of this starts in the home. Some of this can be gained in extracurricular activities, like I mentioned before, such as sports and youth organizations and clubs and academic clubs. We have to prepare our young people. And if we don't do it, and if they're not prepared, then shame on us. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to have your ear for the time that you allow it. Thanks again. Stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.